So if we do claim that there is a rabbit hole in the study of the human mind or the study of the human psyche, then what is the rabbit hole? Where is it? Demonstrate the rabbit hole then. Because, and we're justified in saying this because the rabbit hole in question isn't particularly evident in everyday life. In fact, insofar as our normal run-of-the-mill daily life is concerned, the one thing that we could say about this experience is that there's a lack of rabbit holes. So our normal existence is defined by a complete and utter lack of rabbit holes. It's seamless. If it were made out of tiles and there was a gap between each tile, we could say that there might be a rabbit hole between the gap, but there's no gaps. It's completely seamless. And the reason I can say that with a fair degree of confidence is because if it were to happen that a seam would open up or crack would open up for anyone, then in that case, if I happen to be the person in question, I'd run around telling everyone about it, and most probably, because it would be a really big thing. It'd probably freak me out. We're used to normal. Everything is normal. Things can happen in the day, so I might say, oh, that was a boring day, or nothing much happened today. Or I could say, loads of stuff happened. Gosh, so much stuff happened today. But what I mean when I say that is so much normal stuff. It could be good stuff, it could be exciting stuff, but it's still normal. It makes sense to my conceptual mind. So I could have the greatest time, a real thrilling time. But it's still totally normal. There's no rabbit holes. Because when we're talking about rabbit holes, that's a different kettle of fish entirely. So were it to be the case that you or I would happen to run into a manifestation of reality during our daily lives that completely banjaxes the conceptual mind, doesn't make any sense to the conceptual mind, that would be an absolutely huge event, and it'd probably freak us out, unless we happen to have a taste for strange things, strangeness, unless we like being out there in the zone where things are weird. Now, the weird thing about this is that although weird is so very weird and strange is something we don't come across, and when we do, we kind of backtrack as fast as we can and forget about it. In actual fact, weird is all there is, strange is all there is. There is nothing else. There couldn't be anything else. And yet, somehow, by some fantastic trick, we have orchestrated things so that normal is all there is. Day after day, wall-to-wall normal. What a proposition. Wall-to-wall normal. How have we managed this, and how have we orchestrated it, and why? Given the fact that there is no such thing as normal. So that's a kind of a hypnosis going on right there. It's a kind of a trick. We're playing on ourselves so that we think everything is normal when there is no such thing as normal. Now, of course, I'm aware that most people will take issue with that and say, what are you talking about? Normal is everywhere. Look at it. How normal can you get? Look at that. That's normal. Look at that. That's normal. But then, that's only because we've managed to pull off this stunt whereby it seems normal. Guaranteed, anything at all, any situation at all, if we were to bring unconditioned consciousness that hasn't been pre-formatted to see certain structural situations as being normal. If we were to bring unformatted consciousness into play, no matter what it was, it would seem not abnormal, because abnormal implies the existence of normal. But there can't be any abnormal if there's no normal, so abnormal is the wrong word. But this is even though it's a very rare thing to suddenly perceive the apparently supposedly normal as being strange, it can happen all the same, and it does happen from time to time. And when it does, we can either try and skip it, press fast forward, or just backtrack, or in whatever way just preoccupy ourselves with normal stuff fairly quickly so that we forget about it. And that's what Sogyal Rinpoche says about encounters with the bardo in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. So the bardo is the gap between one solid, predictable situation and another. So what we're talking about, what I'm talking about here really is bardos, gaps. And as Sogyal Rinpoche says, every now and again a gap will open up, maybe due to events that happen to us that are intense enough. And then for a moment we'll be in a strange place. And that strange place is the only place there is. There's only that strange place, but somehow it could be said that we hypnotize ourselves, or that we deceive ourselves, or that we play a trick on ourselves. But probably a better way of saying it would be just to say that we fall asleep. And this type of sleep, which isn't the normal type of sleep where you snore and lie in bed and wake up in the morning and have a cup of tea. This is a type of a sleep where we allow the thinking mind just to rehash the same old regularities over and over again. So it just spouts up this stream of predictable, regular stuff. Everything that happens, everything that comes out of the thinking mind is with it's based on a precedent. It's like attending some kind of social do, some kind of thing where you go out and meet people, and it's kind of a posh thing, and so everyone's on their best behavior. Now, in a situation like that, the only stuff that ever gets said is predictable stuff, safe stuff, which is prescribed. We say the prescribed thing, and the person we're talking to will reply with the prescribed thing, and then that's okay. There's nothing awkward in that. Everything proceeds smoothly. So that's what the mind does. Everything is prescribed. It has what might seem like a big range of different things that it can use, but it's still all prescribed. And because it has a large vocabulary in a way, what it can do, it seems to us that everything isn't just a predefined narrative or script, but it is. And that's why it seems normal. Anything goes off the script, then that's strange. So really, what I'm saying there, or what I'm saying here, is that everything is the rabbit hole. There's nothing that isn't the rabbit hole, and so there can't not be a rabbit hole in psychology. And if we were to want to study psychology, then the first thing we'd be studying would be this remarkable thing whereby we create a false reality which is completely regular, completely generic, completely predictable, and completely non-existentially challenging for ourselves, and manage to live in this, squeeze ourselves into the confines of this setup for the whole of our lives without ever knowing the difference. Well, we can never not know the difference. We'll always have a few hints, a few moments. So then the big question is, what do we do with those moments? Do they whet our appetite for more, to be curious, to go a bit deeper, to start unraveling the jumper? or is there some kind of mechanism which goes, let's just pretend this never happened, erase it, ascribe it to something else, write it off, say, oh, it's nothing but this, nothing but that, nothing. So it becomes, it's a nothing but. And as we all know, the rational intellect is a fantastic expert at the nothing but. Anything at all, it will scoff and sneer and look superior and say, but that's nothing but, etc., whatever it's going to say after that. And the sting in that is, of course, how could you be such a soft-headed muppet, a fool of an idiot, as to believe some nonsense like that? So it's a scoffing. It is definitely scoffing. The rational intellect scoffs. It sneers. But behind this sneering, behind this scoffing, is total fear. So sneering is a mask for fear. This assumed position of superiority is utter fear. Because we are in a precarious situation in so much as we want to live in the mind-created world, the mind-created virtual reality. Because the entire thing is a house of cards, and it can come tumbling down at any time at all. Or on some level, we know that it is very, very precarious, very, very fragile. So although when we're in this particular house of cards, when we're in the mind-created virtual reality, we have this look to us. We're kind of complacent, bored, smug. There's this kind of lazy look to us, blank look. We're actually snoozing, we're fast asleep. So these are all the kind of signs of our state of mind. We're kind of like, it's like seen it all before, just about. It's like that kind of cynical kind of approach. Yeah. So although we're kind of jaded and cynical and worldly wise, apparently, all of that just masks this incredible fragility, this incredible vulnerability and anxiety. So what that comes down to is anxiety, which is buried. So the first thing we can say, if we're challenged to kind of come up with a rabbit hole, but I can project some kind of super intellectual super ego who's scoffing at me and saying, because that's what we have in our head. We do get glimpses of something which is more than the normal reality, and then there's the rational intellectual part of us comes and sneers and scoffs and cows us into submission, and we feel ashamed that we were stupid enough to actually think that there might be something in this vision of reality that is not beyond normal, beyond the remit of normal. And so we're very easily put back into our box, put back into our cage, and then we kind of feel embarrassed or ashamed, and we kind of say, no, I never believed that, not really. Of course I didn't, because that's what the rational commentator does to us. It scoffs at the rabbit hole. So then the point here, I suppose, is that people will say, yes, but that's just so much talk. You're saying there is a rabbit hole in some kind of a way, maybe kind of a fancy way, but you're saying there's a rabbit hole and I can't see it. So that's no answer. But it's impossible to demonstrate a rabbit hole to someone who has no interest in rabbit holes, because they will always explain it away, no matter how dramatic. It will always be explained away. So I guess, the thing is, not just I guess, I know, obviously, it's not just that I know, it's like very, very clearly, unless someone has a predilection to being interested in rabbit holes, it is an infinitely impossible thing to do to persuade them of the existence of a rabbit hole, and that just has to be accepted. Otherwise, we end up in all sorts of stupid debates and arguments, which is pointless. But on the other hand, so then we could address ourselves to that section of the population that actually isn't so cynical, and maybe they are interested, because in all fairness, anything rabbit hole-like is infinitely more interesting than the tedium that the thinking mind serves up to us every day, which is like very, very bad TV. Reruns of stuff that never should have been made in the first place, really. So then, and we're crying out for something that is very, very different to the usual menu, which is, oh God, not that again. But somehow we never actually say, oh no, not that again, because we're so frightened we have to make the most of it, because, okay, we're running away from novelty, we're running away from infinite strangeness, we're running away from having no predictability and living in a world that we just can't understand, by retreating to the mind-created virtual reality. So we're safe. But then the next thing is we're safe, but we also have to pretend that it's great and that we like it and keep on telling us, yes, this is good, this is great, this is where it's at. Precisely because we know that it isn't on some level. Obviously it isn't. We can't help but know that it isn't, because it's completely drab, completely colourless. It's tedious. It is pure tedium, which we contrive not to see as being tedium when we turn it into a sense of duty and say, we pat ourselves on the back and get to feel great about ourselves because we're sensible enough to accept the tedium, the infinite tedium of the rational reality as being the only reality there ever could be, and we give ourselves prizes for being mature enough to see this and accept this and discount all other possible airy-fairy things that they are in the world. So we feel good about that. And feeling good about it in that particular smug way is our compensation for living in the tedious world that on some level we know is totally tedious. But there is always a possibility that we can actually somehow find our way out of that nasty little trap and actually get interested in stuff that isn't tedious, which isn't too hard, because stuff that isn't tedious is interesting anyway. So if that is the case, then anyone who is open to seeing the rabbit hole can, because it's there all the time, because it's all that there is. Okay, thanks for watching.